Hello and welcome to Diamonds and Duds, episode 16.
I'm Charles Baker.
I am Ivan Baker, and today we're exploring the world of dinosaurs and the future with Terra Nova.
Terra Nova. Okay, so yeah, we're continuing our journey into TV like we did with the 100. This is we're going to be reviewing the first 3 episodes. Like we said last time with the 100, this is a 1-season only show, so keep that in mind if you want to go watch it. This is a 1-season show that did not find the audience it was looking for.
It did not find the audience it was looking for, and kind of, if you listen to our last episode, one of the things we're very careful of is serials, and do they know they have a finale? My guess is that this show was super freaking expensive. It didn't find its audience. It was on network television and not, say, like an HBO, or it was before Netflix did TV shows or anything like that. And so this thing lasted 1 season.
Yep, 13 episodes on the Fox Network.
Yeah.
12 or 13.
And so one of the things I forgot to mention on the last episode, I'll say the Rotten Tomatoes score surprised me here. Critics gave this a 62%.
What?
The audience gave it a 69%.
Wow. Not to spoil my thoughts, but I believe that's at least 60% too high in both cases.
I'll say
I'll say 62. I will. I'm going to go on the record. I think it's 62% too high from the critic.
See,
this is a 0% for me. There's no redeeming value.
See, I had a couple pieces of redeeming value, but like not enough. This is a show that should have been on like a Netflix and granted a Paramount or something like that, where it was given like 8 to 10 episodes where they could. And I don't. This is me probably speaking out of term. This is probably partly a case of too many cooks in the kitchen for a lot of this. But we're kind of, I think, put the cart before the horse. Do you have a synopsis?
Yeah. So from executive producers Steven Spielberg. Fuck you, Steven Spielberg. Fuck you up the fucking ass. You deserve to lose one of your Oscars. Now, okay, that being said, I guarantee he had no input. I guarantee the only thing that in reality, all jokes aside, that they paid Steven Spielberg money to be able to slap his name on it because it involves dinosaurs. I guarantee there's not a single Steven Spielberg thought in this. So, like I say, fuck you, Steven Spielberg. He's not. This show sucks.
No, and
we also got Peter showing something else. Renee Echeverria and Brandon Braga. Brandon Braga comes from the world of Star Trek. Spent a lot of time on Star Trek Voyager.
Okay.
And it comes and an epic family adventure, 85 million years in the making. This series centers on the Shannon family as they join the 10th pilgrimage of settlers to Terra Nova, the first colony established in the beautiful yet forbidding land.
Now, it was the creators of this are listed as Kelly Marcel. Now, Kelly Marcel has, I don't know if this is a male or female. Female.
Yeah.
Kelly Marcel has actually hit a bit of popularity recently. Not for Terra Nova. She was behind the initial 50 Shades of Grey.
Okay.
And she's also the creative force behind the Venom movies.
Oh, okay. So there you go. Yeah.
And also, Craig Silvertine is kind of sci-fi royalty as well.
Okay.
He is behind the most recent La Femme Nikita TV show that had what's her name?
So La Femme Nikita, yeah. So La Femme Nikita, if you aren't familiar with that, we're talking female spies, like female spy type of thing. There was one of my favorite movies of all time is
Maggie Q.
Maggie Q.
That's I absolutely love the show. The original, not the original, the original name.
Yeah, the USA.
The 2010 Nikita is what this guy was behind.
Nice. Yeah. And so La Femme Nikita, basically, the original USA was kind of a light inspiration for one of my favorite movies called The Profession. But back to Terra. So both of the creators then have gone on to bigger and much better things.
And so going into it, I was like, oh, maybe this isn't as bad as I'd heard.
Yeah.
So was the mindset Mr. Ivan was going in.
It's like they developed their craft, I would say.
But also,
writers.
I'm curious with this being with dinosaurs and how much this had to fucking cost. My guess is probably part of it is they had so many cooks in the kitchen telling what they needed to do episode to episode that I think it was just fucking dude.
Yeah, the pilot cost $14 million. Each episode, therefore, cost I think $4. I like that. I will say, I'm just gonna say this. They didn't put any more in their effects budget than Roseanne. And I'm willing to say that. I'm willing to say that. Like, again, that's hyperbolic. Obviously, they did. But
now, keep in mind, Charles, these special effects are at this point 14 years old.
Oh, no, I agree. Now, that being said, I'm willing to pit some of the original Star Trek series.
Oh, don't get me wrong. The effects were really bad.
Yeah.
But what this starts out as is you have a family, and as I was watching this, I thought this was kind of ironic because I had watched this after we had watched the beginning of the 100, and we talked about Bellamy and Octavia. And granted, part of that is that show's like it was started 7 or 8 years after this. Yeah. But like Bellamy and Octavia were kind of like, hey, they got in trouble because they had a second kid. Yeah. Well, that apparently you're only allowed to have 2 kids.
Yeah. So pilot, this is a double episode. Dawn of the 22nd century, the world's on verge of environmental collapse. And they show the Earth from the outside of the Earth looks worse. And just in terms of like, you can tell it's atmosphere stuff. I'm saying before we see the Earth, we go over the moon, and I will say that the Earth looked fine. That's the shittiest looking shot of a moon that I've ever seen.
I had a lot of problems here in the beginning because it's the part of this goes into what little Ivan thought of this show is that I didn't even bother to learn anybody's names.
Yeah. I got some of the names of that show.
I didn't. I call them dad, mom, sister, younger sister, brother, Avatar guy.
Avatar guy. He's actually the only. I will say Stephen Lang is actually the only person.
Oh, Stephen Lang is good.
I had no issues with.
I had no issues. We'll get to Stephen Lang. But basically, Dad is a cop in this.
Yeah.
And they're hiding younger kid.
Yeah, she was at the time 3 years old.
At the time, 3 years old. And Dad comes in with an orange, which is apparently, like, really hard to get. But also then, if you have 3 kids and an extra kid, why are you spending a shit ton of money getting an orange? But... and so... but also, it sounds like he gets oranges enough that the son knows exactly the best way to peel them. Yeah. Not that oranges are that hard to peel, but
we're supposed this type. The world has been in this state for a while. We know.
Yeah, exactly. And something happened. And they hear that there's a search. There's a search coming. Like they're going to search their house here shortly.
Yep. And so like, we've been told the man's only hope for survival is 85 million years in the past. And I wrote here, and this is a thorough line I have. How is the best hope to survive? To go back to the fucking dinosaur.
I will say they explain that.
I will say I give them a 1% out of 100 when we get to that part.
See, for me, I give sci-fi shows a pass at a lot of this kind of stuff. And so as long as they kind of explain it, especially for a sci-fi show like, I know they don't. Yeah. They don't get to it later. My assumption is that with a show like this, normally what happens is you get the basic explanation in the beginning, as long as they address it, and then in some later episode or later season, they fully flush out. Because basically what the reason is that something happens and a time, like, hiccup or something like that appears, but then they do something to figure out that wherever that goes is not in their timeline, basically, is what they do.
Yeah.
But going back to the problem I have in this beginning is that their dad's a cop, And apparently Dad has a huge problem with the cop that comes to, search him. And he punches it. And basically they find the kid because who knew that throwing a 3-year-old in a dark thing, they're going to make an air duct, they're going to make fucking noise. Yeah. But they hear the kid, and Dad punches the cop.
Yeah.
Which causes a huge rift. And I litter my notes, Charles, with son is right. Because what we're going to find out later is the son hates the fucking dad.
Yeah.
But what they want you to do is they want you to feel like, hey, it's mom and dad. Mom and dad no, fuck that. Son knows best. Yeah. They had to, because basically the dad goes to prison for 2 years.
Yep.
And they have to fend for themselves now for 2 years. And that's why son hates dad.
Yeah. And seriously, and again, this goes back to, I think the people the writers on the show were 5-year-olds. And I mean, I'm serious. They did not, or at least they have the writing ability of 5-year-olds. Okay? If any of the writers had credits later on that are known things, then somebody else wrote it for them. Because these writers are not capable, because of the fact that, they made a point of saying that, it's illegal, right? Well, as 2 years are going to go by, outside of him going to jail for punching a fucking cop, they got no consequences for the girl. The third girl, their daughter's still living with them. So it must. So and as the son does say this later on, like a fine. It would have been like a fine. So just stupid. So wasn't it? So it's totally pointless. But then we get to one of the biggest issue I had with the futuristic part. Oh, one of the biggest. So we go to jail. 2 years have passed. They've now been the wife, because she's a doctor, and the kids, they've been chosen for the next pilgrimage back into 85 million years in the past. And so they're going to go. However, she wants, basically, Dad's going to, the mom and the first 2 kids have been chosen. The third kid is not. And Dad's obviously in prison. So basically, she gives Dad, and so it's clear, they make a point of showing that this is like a serious business prison. She gives him somehow she gives a little thing, fine, sneaking in, okay. Like little laser. And then again, the writers have the ability of 5-year-old. They've cheated anything they've done since then. And I mean that with utter sincerity. Because do we see the breakout?
This is a problem I had. They tend to just skip giant chunks of cool stuff. Yeah. Like a lot.
Yeah, so this is a bit, the next scene actually, the next scene is when they're walking through the portal, and he's already out, and he grabs a backpack that clearly has a 5-year-old kid inside it. You better, and at one point he drops the backpack or something like that. I'm like, that clearly has a kid. You better get through that portal soon.
Yeah.
But I mean, you showed us a prison. You're not gonna show us how he broke out.
And
bullshit.
What frustrates me is that this show, at its basic levels, there is some stuff that could have been a good show. Okay. Like the idea of going back to the past like this is a cool idea. The idea of one of the things we're going to find out later is that there's writing from even farther back with equations and shit.
Actually, they explain.
No,
yeah.
But the idea, they explain that later, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But the idea of, is this the only time? Some of that stuff is a cool idea. It's just they do it so shittily. Is that, yeah.
And, yeah, I honestly think the fissure should have been something where it takes them to... you could have kept something like that. The fact of the matter is, and here's my biggest plot point. These are the worst-looking dinosaurs I have ever seen.
Right?
If you cannot make a dinosaur that's better than an 8-year-old who's covering one eye and drawing what their opposite hand can do, then you do not need to be setting your show during dinosaur time.
Well, and I had a problem because eventually they go through, they get back to whatever the city.
Yeah.
And the problem I had was the way the city was designed is that the brontosauruses can just sort of reach in, which I think is meant to be, hey, look at our cool dinosaur tech that they think is good, but it's actually, as Charles said, is really bad. But the problem I had is, and I mentioned this in a lot of our episodes, is that you guys do realize that if brontosauruses can reach in, giant carnivorous dinosaurs can too.
Yep.
Like a T-Rex can just sort of walk over your fence.
Yes.
And just walk in, because their fence isn't electric. There's nothing that's, there's some guns at the front gate, but like that was the problem I had when I saw somebody when they had their moment to show, hey, look how cool our special effects are, which maybe I'm willing to say, hey, maybe the special effects look better in 2011. I kind of doubt it.
I've looked at some like comments and stuff. The special effects were considered blow your brain out bad.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking. But like, they didn't, like, a lot of the most of these plot points they just didn't fucking think through.
Yeah. Oh, believe me. So, and a big issue I have, so we get, okay, so they go through the portal, and we see Terra Nova. Okay, first of all, you need to keep in mind that Terra Nova was designed by military people. Okay? And so, right away, another, the 5-year-old and 5-year-olds are going to qualify. You see, Terra Nova's a big circle. Got a big walled fence. Right by all those fences, within the first, whatever, just really close to all the fences, is all of the housing. And then taking up about 80% of the space in the middle is all bar. So, considering we have big, gigantic dinosaurs that can get through the fence, we're putting all the people in the closest proximity to where the dinosaurs will be able to get them immediately. I kind of wondered why we didn't have the living things in the center and the farm. The layout is just absolutely horrific and stupid.
Oh, it's designed so poor. Because I wondered why the fence just wasn't taller.
Yeah.
It is, or electric. And I understood maybe the no electric from a power standpoint.
No, they make it clear, though, as well as, and they haven't really explained the rules to us, probably because they don't want to. But whereas the Risen Pilgrims, they get regular deliveries from the future, and so they have futuristic guns. They have futuristic technology. Technology in this technology is not lacking whatsoever. So yes, they could have very much made the fence electrified, and things like that. And
a better plot point, Charles, for this show would have been, is that they get cut off.
Yeah,
that's more interesting of an idea.
Yeah,
is they get cut off and they have to figure it out. And during the course at some point when we're talking here, Stephen Lang gets his speech. And again, I have no problem with Stephen Lang.
No, he's fine. He was a bad guy from Avatar. He did good here.
He did good here. He did everything he could in 3 episodes we watched.
Yeah, and so he's basically he doesn't give a shit about their stuff. He cares about whether or not people are useful. He doesn't put Dad as a cop because he just fucking broke out of jail. Puts him on agriculture, but everybody knows, okay, that's not gonna. And so you always mentioned that the sun is bright, and I agree with you. But the sun also has 5 IQ.
Oh no, the sun's incredibly stupid.
The actor, again, most of the actors are bad. Stephen Lang is fine. 1 or 2 other people I would classify as just forgettable in terms of quality, like the mother, and there's another one the person that shows up starts in episode 2 that I would classify as they're good enough to fade into a background in a good show. They would be the weak point, but they're
in this show. They're by far they're by far the second best group.
Yes. The son sucks as an actor.
Oh, the son's horrible.
The dad sucks as an actor.
How did the dad get on to
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah.
I know.
I think less of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that he was
Me
on.
too. Me too. I do. I really do after watching it. I'm like, Jesus, how did this guy make it there later on? The 5-year-old girl, the youngest daughter is now 5. I don't blame her, but like her character's just
her character. So the mom and dad hadn't seen each other in 2 years, and we're now at like the 4th or 5th night in Terra Nova, and they still haven't slept in the same bed, and it's like,
and like these first few episodes they show these are the worst parents like ever. These parents suck. Zoe gets lost in a land of dinosaurs in 60 seconds. That's the 5-year-old. 60 seconds, and she gets lost. I'm like, for fuck's sake, and like a dinosaur, brontosaurus wannabe, as I pull it up. Which, interesting note, did you know that there's no such thing as a brontosaurus?
really?
Oh, never existed. This is a fun. I only know, but here, little dovetail into history. So brontosaurus, we all know, love, Land Before Time, Littlefoot. Okay, 1976. A guy in the 1970s, guy discovers. West might even moved early, but anyway, they discovered a dinosaur. Yeah. A few years, that's what it is. When a few years later, same guy discovers another dinosaur. He thinks it's a different species, and he names it Brontosaurus. It's actually been confirmed since like 1976. They're the same animal. It's just the name Brontosaurus, like that dinosaur, that animal, like existed. It's more just a fun fact of they're actually Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus are the same names as Brontosaurus. So Brontosaurus is the name. Thanks, Way Before Time and whatnot that everyone knows. So kind of a interesting. That used to be in the reading material. But yeah, so they want 60 seconds. The kid gets lost. Now, despite I think the layout of the city is shitty. The city, in terms of effects, I will say, because they actually built that city, and that's where all the money went to.
Yeah,
apparently, like they literally, the entire money on their show was they actually built the entire fucking city, like exactly. That's where all this million, and they spent a couple dollars on a dinosaur effect. But like again, the dinosaurs look on the first look. The dinosaurs, I'm like, God, dinosaurs look pathetic. Not a good sign. Son's also crap actor. We have the angry son, which is, I get it, a little cliche, but also I started really because they bathe in cliches on the show when the family they bathe.
And also around this time, the mother has to do like a procedure on somebody, but doesn't know anything about that procedure.
Yeah.
But like, wouldn't and I just sort of wrote. So mom is a doctor who doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
And granted, it's Terra Nova technology or whatever the word would be. But shouldn't she have known one of two things? Shouldn't she have known that as a preparation for coming over? Or two, wouldn't they have made sure she studied that before she just sort of took that off that guy?
Yeah.
Because basically she takes like some giant leech off.
Yeah, and I'm like kind of making shit up in terms of random bugs healing, aren't they? Which also goes to show, and I actually did look this up. I don't know why they did this, but none of the dinosaurs that they use in the show are real. They make them all. Every single one is a made-up dinosaur, and actually, which on one hand you might be like, okay, fossils only represent like 0.1% of like the animals that lived in that time, so you do have room to make up species of dinosaurs. Animals, you absolutely do. That being said, one of the criticisms I have, and also afterwards I looked at it very well, is they had really dumb shit names for their dinosaurs, and also they made up just really asinine, stupid dinosaurs, just for the sake of drama. Stupid.
They wanted to sell T-shirts and shit with their dinosaurs.
Yes, exactly. I can't stand the walking cliche that's son. He meets a group of kids. They decide, hey, yeah, let's go be rambunctious teenagers out on the side of the wall in fucking dinosaur land. Gee, that's gonna go well. Like, oh, they're going outside the wells. That's gonna end well.
Well, and around this time, I have nothing about why I wrote what I wrote, Charles, about here. I say, hey, son fights friends and they leave compound for some reason. Friends are nuts. Then I also wrote, Dad is an ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a guy who snuck in and needs to like be on his best behavior, Dad is a fucking asshole to everybody.
He is.
He feels he deserves to know everything, and he deserves to know everything now, and he has to make every decision. Yep. Who cares if Stephen Lang has been there for like 7 years, what the hell it was.
Yep. And I will say, when they broke out and they were in the... And this goes to, like, when they're out in the actual nature, the nature and the environment looks cool. Again, this goes to where all the money went. They didn't build their entire working city on a lot. They went into they built this entire working city in a jungle in South America. Or whatever.
That's really stupid.
Yeah, so they spent all their money. So yeah, the environment, the trees and wild, they look cool. That's good. They're the only things that are real. Again, you mentioned it earlier. I did like this is where the teams they kind of find the ancient symbols. I will say I did find that interesting.
I found that interesting. I didn't find the explanation later that they decide to provide a couple episodes in to tell us the exact reason why all that shit's happening.
Yeah.
Because basically around here we find out there's another faction called the Sixers. Called the Sixers because they were on the Sixth Pilgrimage, and apparently virtually everybody on the Sixth Pilgrimage revolted and fought back and left or whatever. Avatar guy basically tells Dad that he hasn't told the future about Sixers because it seems clear that somebody's in Terra Nova is helping him, and he doesn't know who he can trust.
Yeah, I think, doesn't he also mention he thinks someone from the future?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we also are saying the older sister is your very stereotypical, socially awkward uber nerd.
Yep.
And that made me want to bash my...
It's done, and I don't blame her or the actor playing the boyfriend. It's not their fault. It's just, and
you do what you can with what not so.
And the one thing around here is that basically at this point the kids, Sixers had attacked the main base, but then as they were leaving, the Sixers had stolen the power cells or something out of their golf cart, and so they were stuck there.
And so go through this event. So Sixers, there's a guy, he takes a shot at Taylor, and then they imprison the Sixer, right?
Yep.
Really, really soon after that, okay? First of all, we see another horrible green screen. They mentioned that one of the dinosaurs named Carnotaurus. Couldn't come up with better. Whatever. Okay, so the Sixers and the groups, they come shortly after that, and they talk about they found out that you're holding somebody. That's really fast. They didn't even have time to get from their place. But it is worth mentioning because it'll come back later. I think in another episode. Okay, they talk very clearly, both the sheriff and Taylor, about believing there's a traitor in their midst. Something they forget they talked about later, where I forget which one, where some of them are there's another conversation in another episode where one's talking about, I think Taylor says that I think there's a traitor, and the sheriff just acts wait, what? Dude, you had this fucking conversation in the pilot. You know this.
Yeah.
And they do basically the comic trope about the wife being upset about him being a cop again. But do we have anything? Is that ever followed up on?
It's not, but it's I get that you're not, but it's dude, we're we're in prehistoric times, and there's fucking dinosaurs everywhere.
Yeah, you need some cops, security, whatever the case may be.
And the one thing I did appreciate around this time is when all the kids they're getting rescued and stuff. Did you catch the aliens reference?
Oh yeah, I wrote it down.
Yeah, I as much as the show sucked, I appreciated the aliens reference. Basically, they mentioned, hey, they come out mostly at night, mostly, and so I appreciated that.
Yeah, I wrote down. I hope Release got consulted on that line. I mean, and so yeah,
and I will say. We'll call her future girlfriend.
Yeah.
I will say she's one of the few good actresses in this show.
Yeah, she's fine.
I think she's fine. She's not given a whole hell of a lot to work with.
Yeah.
But I think she was fine.
Yeah. Now, Smart Girl's love interest, he's from like the soldier guy or whatever. He gets more developed in the later.
Oh, he's dumb as shit.
Yeah, he's central, straight from Central Cast.
Yeah. He was a guy that was like an extra, and they're like, hey, that extra is kind of attractive. Can we just use him and pay him what we paid the extra? I think.
Yeah, because basically what happens is those teenagers get fucked. Because Nightfall, they make it clear, Nightfall, oh yeah, you don't want to go out at Nightfall, you're kind of fucked. Dinosaurs go around them, and then Taylor and everybody, they go off searching for the kids. And here's where we have, last episode we talked about the 100. What was one of the things you mentioned that the show was willing to do with kids? We talked about 100 on the last time.
Kill
Kill him, right? Did this show kill any of those?
No, I'm willing to give that. This show was on Fox like 10 years before the 10 years before the 100. So I'm giving them a little bit of a pass on that. The one thing the girlfriend. They clearly were they clearly had an idea to do something, but decided to just throw it away later. Yeah. You notice, they made a big point about showing she was scratched.
Oh yeah.
But then they made a big point about one of the dinosaurs scratched her in a certain way, but and they made they really focused in on it, and that she was hiding that from everybody. But it ended up being just nothing.
By the way, she's a 6 or 5.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Oh, better lie. I bet better lies on it. She's a 6. She's totally the 6.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
That makes sense.
No, this is not something I have confirmed. Anyway, I'm just she's.
When you finish this show, Charles, let me know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I'm very convinced that she's a 6 or 5.
And I finished this episode by writing "All's well that ends well."
Yeah, basically.
This show does this a lot. I think they just sort of realize that, oh, fuck, we have 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And we film 39, and we don't believe in editing, so it's we got 3 minutes to wrap this bitch up.
Exactly, yes. I was thinking that various,
we don't know how to use editing software, so It's one thing when two brothers record a podcast and they don't want to edit. Yeah. It's another thing when you're paying $14 million to build a complex in South America and you're like, I don't want to edit. And so it's I think that's what happened here. There's a lot of cool shit. Some of the future episodes too. It's you're waiting for the cool shit to happen. And then it's they just sort of fucking skip past it.
Yeah. And it's also, all right, oh shit, we gotta wrap this, but go. We're ending now. Oh yeah, we stopped it. It's good now. So episode 2, Instinct. So this is we're now pacified. We're now in our first regular episode of the week.
And Fox says we need another love interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now this is the other that I talk about, in any other show, he would be the weak link. We get introduced by Malcolm. Any other show, he'd be the weak link. Because it's this show,
I call him boyfriend.
Yeah. He seems to be the king beast. Because even Taylor, even Stephen Lang, there's major because overall he's the best in this. In Avatar, he deserved to be executed. The person. He's one of the most pathetic villains in movie history. I don't think Stephen Lang's a good actor overall. He's the best in this, but even then, he has some major moments, but he's still decent. He's still solid. He hams it up. He knows he's
basically solid. What this guy is that in the pilot, you find out the mother was given the opportunity to come to Terra Nova. She was recruited. But you find out she was recruited by this guy, who I'll call boyfriend. Yep. Charles will call him by his name.
Yep.
basically, he used to date Mom when they were in college. And he finds out that Dad was in prison.
Yep.
So he's like, hey, I'll invite Mom to Terra Nova because maybe I could fuck her.
Yep. And then he's shocked when, oh, fuck, wait, Dad?
He's shocked by, oh, fuck, how did Dad get here? I don't know how it took him, 2 weeks to find out because apparently they work in the same office.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I know. So we start the Classroom Survival training, and again, I said it about episode 1. These are the worst parents that you will ever see. We're in prehistoric times, 85 million years ago. The 5-year-old who's already she's a prop. She's not a person. She's a prop. Who's like, oh, can I have this plant? This is literally a prehistoric plant with a mouth
and teeth.
Yeah, and teeth. So it's a carnivorous prehistoric plant. No, you don't let a 5-year-old have that in their room. When you just watched her stick her finger almost in its mouth, you don't let your 5-year-old daughter have that plant in her own. That's stupid.
I also wrote one thing I had a problem with as this episode was going to, because they don't make it clear that Dad's a cop. They just sort of make, which obviously that's what he is, but they just make him look like he's one of the military guys, right? Why doesn't he wear
the same uniform?
He just sort of wears clothes.
I know.
And that was one of the things Ivan had a problem with, is that he just sort of wears whatever the actor wore to set that day.
Yep. And here's another instance where they're talking about the Sixers. And, Sheriff Boy, Cannon, he's like, whatever they're talking about, it's like, hey, why don't you why don't you just go to the Sixers place and wipe out? And Taylor's like, we don't know if we knew where they were. They know where they fucking are. In the pilot episode, when the Sixers come, they do a trade for the Rocks. They mentioned
yes!
They mentioned the Rocks. It's like, we have to work with them because these Rocks, they're important, and the Sixers base, they're at the quarry. I'm like, yeah, you know where they're fucking at. They're at the quarry. You said that yesterday.
Well, it also goes to the fact that in this show, and I've harped on this in some of the movies we've watched, but they don't proofread shit. In a sci-fi show like this, whether it's, and you haven't watched it, Charles.
Yeah.
Like a show like Severance, that's on Apple TV, or you need to make sure that stuff is consistent. That something like Lost was great about this. Mm-hmm. Is that something they mentioned in episode 4? If they're going to bring that up and say season 3, episode 9, they know what they did in episode 4 and they reference it the right way. Yeah. When they do it here, they just don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They just say, you know what, that requires looking up what we did, and it's like I just don't care.
Because again, Shannon, I talked about this a few minutes ago. Here's where Shannon doubts that there's a spy. How can you fucking doubt a spy? They knew instantly that a Sixer was in custody. You had this conversation with Taylor a day ago.
Because if they had a bit a couple things needed to happen with the show. Is that one, they needed to have better screenwriters, but also, and since these but they also needed to have whoever wrote this needed to have control. Because my assumption is that a lot of this ended up the way it was because of the money that was spent. People at Fox put their nose in to say you have to do this, that, or the other. Okay, what the show should have been was that they had however many pilgrimages, right? Find a better way to do Earth, but you get them here quick. But something happens and they're cut off immediately.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And and you have an episode about we now no longer have resort, and so that's what your goddamn episodes are, and they don't care about any consistency, and it's just I think they thought everybody would think dinosaurs were really cool.
Yeah, and so so there's a subplot that's actually going to tie importantly into the main story of dad wanting to fucking get laid. Because remember, he was in prison for 2 years. And, like, these birds who keep on distracting him outside, you know, okay. And so, like, the first time there's one, we see then those birds, we think that they might have been responsible for his crew being killed out. When they showed up, this is what the person responsible for all this fucking shit this episode is the fucking sun. So the second time Dad goes out there and there's 3 birds, the sun goes out too. Those birds aren't doing anything until the sun throws a fucking rock and hits one of them with a fucking rock, and then they go insane. Which these birds, again, they're consistent. They look shitty as hell. Except for one shot later, they look fantastic because they're on a computer screen. Stop. So they look shitty, and so the birds start going crazy.
Yeah, and it's like, and if we fast forward a little bit, basically what ends up happening is that they picked Terra Nova because, like, when they dug down, there were a bunch of, like, eggs, and they're like, oh, the eggs made the ground fertile that we could grow, and I think they assumed logically that, oh, whatever these eggs were, and the eggs were broken, they're gone.
Yeah.
That's what all these birds are, and they're coming back to mate.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind here as I make the next point is these birds are not large. Okay?
No, they're like the size of a big crow.
Yes. Now, because eventually they start swarming around the whole. I mean,
those guns they shot last episode at the Sixers could have taken out the entire host of them.
But there's also one moment where one bird, there's a soldier stationary. One bird flies and it just runs into the soldier. The soldier flies back 5 feet. It flies 5 feet into the air and lands on his back. What I wrote down. WTF. What the fuck? That is just a fucking stupid issue. These are birds that are like, they're like a foot in diameter. And you can knock a soldier back 5 feet? Yeah, it was stupid.
And I had trouble keeping up making notes for all the stupid shit.
Yeah.
And it's like,
there's just so much.
And it's like, they ended up deciding they needed to get some sort of venom or whatever.
Pheromone, because as you mentioned with the last episode, this is a very good example of, because by now we know there's tens of millions. There's an entire population there. Oh fuck, we have 14 fucking minutes left, and there's tens of millions of them there. So yeah,
and so I wrote. So the plan is to make them horny.
Yeah,
it's basically the plan is to Pied Piper them to an area a few miles away. And this is also a situation where they go through developing all of this, then they just sort of fast forward to it all being done. Yeah. They don't show you any of it. They just sort of say, yeah, we're all good now.
Yeah, especially because they're like, all right, Shannon, in order for us to be able to do this and make the pheromone or whatever, you're going to have to capture a male and a female one alive. Okay? And it's like, alive and that. And they don't show that. The next scene is they're mixing the pheromones while Shannon and Taylor are being
is Shannon the female soldier?
No, Shannon's the
mother?
No, Shannon's a cop. I call him by his last name.
Oh, is that Dad?
Yeah, Dad.
Okay.
Yeah. So they don't show that.
And then this is the situation for us. I'm like, if you want to be a special effects sci-fi, that's fine. Show the cool shit. This episode ends with them cutting out all the cool shit. Them also realizing that they didn't solve anything because the son basically asks, "Are they going to come back when they need to do this again?" And they're like, "No."
Yeah.
And that's basically what they say.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, so it turned out to be really easy to move a breeding ground for tens of millions of flying birds. I mean, and then that's the end of that one. Episode 3, What Remains.
And I'll say, the first episode I had 4 pages. The pilot I had like 4 or 5 pages of notes. Episode 2, I have a page and a half.
Yeah.
Episode 3, I have like a page.
Yeah.
Ivan really started losing interest in this fast.
Oh God, it's a chore. So basically, and yeah, we'll kind of do the quick notes on this one because this one's just so basically again. I mentioned.
I will say that sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll say the idea for this episode is an interesting idea. From like if this was like a Star Trek episode, or basically what the plot of it is that one of the scientists it sounds like they have satellite stations where they're doing research. One of the satellite stations has someone who has not Alzheimer's, but whatever is worse than Alzheimer's, and he or she are trying to develop a virus that will cure that. And basically they fuck everything up and make super Alzheimer's.
Yeah, because basically, so this guy, he was doing this below board because he had in his genes, and so he basically infected the other people, and as group. So basically, and so, I agree. I even wrote that in there. There's the concept of this episode. We get more of the whole Malcolm copy wife jealous, especially jealousy / all that crap going on. And so basically the idea is Taylor and Doctor, they go to check out the satellite station. Basically, and it's airborne, and they say very clearly, they say basically, you get there, it's airborne, and you're going to, and within a couple hours, you start showing the symptoms. Losing your short-term memory first.
Losing your short-term memory first, unless, plot-wise, we need you to know your short-term.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not only that, it's worse than that.
Because there's parts where you realize the mother basically the mother goes there with some people, with Lang and some other people, another guy, and then the dad and boyfriend come later.
Yeah.
But like they initially get there, and the mother like only remembers the boyfriend because like she went back and like her thing went back to when she was in college.
Yeah.
But then you fast forward to a later scene, and she remembers everybody. Yeah. And it's like the short-term memory's gone unless plot-wise we need you to remember something.
Yeah. And see, here's the problem, though. It's even worse than that. Because they don't understand. They didn't do any kind of research. Clearly, none of them knew much about memory, which is fine. But if you're doing an episode, you gotta look it up. At no point in the episode do they do anything related to short-term memory at all. Short-term memory is what you had for breakfast. Short-term memory is, did I turn off the coffee maker? That's the short-term memory. The day-to-day. Memento, one of the greatest movies ever filmed, and one of the greatest screenplays ever done. The character in there, he had lost his short-term memory. Yeah. He didn't remember what happened. Remember Sammy Jenkins. His long-term memory was still intact. They have no concept of this because at no point does any of the people. Copy is the only one unaffected. We find out it's because he has a cold and was taking this stuff that ends up being the magic cure, the magic cure for it. But again, because they ran out of time. But they're like, it's a short-term memory. And then the next line Mom has is, who's Zoe? Like, that's not fucking short-term memory. That's remembering the fact that you have a daughter. That's long-term memory. They had no kind of... I agree. It's an interesting concept. It's a concept that could have worked.
But then... when you're researching it, you realize what you're doing is not short-term memory, so you change that line to not say short-term memory. Yeah, to just say memory.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Say memory.
Yeah, because it's only long-term memory that gets affected. Nobody at any point has any side effects that are short-term memory. It's all, they forget things long-term memory, and they go back to a random point. So yeah, this episode is trash. It's the same issue. We have terrible effects. We have... basically filler crap, and then rush to an ending in the last few minutes. Because Taylor, he goes back to like some mission or something like that. We had no clue what the fuck. First of all, they had him go to the base, which they said
that was a dumb idea.
if they have him go, if somebody if he gets to the base, it's over. It's over for Terra Nova. Everyone's gonna get affected. Everybody dies. We're done. That's what they make it clear.
They make a point of saying that unequivocally, and then they do that. And then they have it be perfectly fine.
Yeah, and they don't show us how they
again,
that.
The same thing that happened with the last episode, where it was like, hey, they didn't show, like, with the bird shit, and then, like, Pied Pipering to wherever. That would have been a cool event, theoretically. They also realized that, oh, shit, we have, like, 3 minutes left. That they just sort of skipped them creating a cure, and they just sort of said, like, Lang wakes up and is like, "Oh, I'm okay now," and they're like, "Yeah, we fixed everybody."
Yeah, what they should have done with Taylor, and that when he goes, they should have had him like as an antagonist there, like a foil for them there. It was briefly that he briefly interacted with Cappy, but he should have stayed in the area, and he should have been an obstacle that they had to overcome. Also. They took the one, and again, maybe it changed in future episodes, but frankly, I don't give a fuck. The one interesting thing that had happened in the show was the writing. They told you, no, it's Taylor's son.
Yeah, they just sort of,
that.
They're like, oh no, it was his son that did all that.
Trying to figure stuff. Now I'm sure there's stuff that he's trying to figure out, but
it's like,
and so clearly Taylor's son's alive because there's a subplot with dumb fuck son. Basically, he's trying to get his girlfriend from
future girlfriend to come and
future girlfriend to come and so the episode, it was another episode that was absolute shit. I wrote this show's painfully bad.
This show. So with our thing, Charles, we do. Diamond or dud, 1 to 5. Diamond 5 is something you'd recommend. Dud 5 is also. Was that something you'd recommend?
See, dud is like it's so bad it's good.
It's
worth a rewatch.
But a dud 1 is one that we'd you just don't never.
Oh fuck no. Another interesting thing. So about halfway through the episode, the subplot with the son, like he meets with someone who's like he's the guy that can get you basically things to the episode. We never see the son again in the episode. And like both parents are gone. We're gone for multiple days. We see both the daughters worrying about that kind of subplot shit like and shit like that. But the son apparently just doesn't give a shit. So what are you on there on the scale? I mean, are you a diamond or a dud?
This is a diamond 5. This is a dud. A dud 0.01. So on our scale, that means it's so bad that this time I'm never going to get back. But it's also not like that Christmas sci-fi movie bad where it was like so bad it was amazing. Yeah.
So I didn't even think about going that route. I'm obviously a dud. I wasn't willing to give a 0 for. I had it for a 0 initially. But I'm like, you know what? So I'm at 0.5. I didn't think about the fact I could go with 0.01. I didn't think about that.
Okay.
But I'm at 0.5. Yeah, this show fucking sucks. This show, there's no redeeming value to it. I hope that whoever it is that was the decision was for it to go on the schedule. Had painful him. Like this show has no redeeming value. The 3 episodes felt like 7 fucking seasons.
Oh, it felt like I watched like all of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I know, right? So next time though, what are we gonna do next time?
Next time we're gonna do the OG Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna do 3 episodes, and we're gonna watch the original, not the Ronald Moore version, which we both watched.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch the OG.
Yeah.
So tune in next time.
Like, comment, subscribe.
All the things.
And see you in the next one.
Adios.
Bye.